The SG Child Show is back for its 13th season. Join Sarah Bradford and the SG Child Show team as they explore the world of autism and share stories of hope and inspiration. This season, we're excited to bring you more autism summits featuring experts and advocates from around the world. Go to sjchilds.org to donate and to get more information. Congratulations on 2024's 20,000 downloads and 300 episodes. We are back. Hello. It's so nice to have you here today. And you're in probably one of the most beautiful places in the world, closest to the equator. Lucky you. And it, they say that is like the best frequency on the earth is to be by there. And maybe I could come down there someday over there. I'm not sure which way it is from Utah. But it's so nice to have you here today. Thanks for taking your time to come and share with us your well of experiences and share a little bit about yourself with us today. So thank you so much. Today we are joined by Mattieu. I'm going to say it wrong, so I'm going to say Mattieu. And I'm not going to pronounce your last name either, but please introduce yourself so that we can hear it correctly and I don't do any damage to anything.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on your show. I'm very excited about what you do. And so my full name is Mattieu Mehuys, or you could say Mattieu Mehuys if we translate it literally. So yeah, I was born on a farm. I'm a landscape architect. And I work with a lot of things where I can tell you my backstory if you want, or
please.
Yeah. So yeah, I like I said, I grew up on a family farm. Both my father and my brother are still active farmers today, and it's a farm that I grew up in. At the time, it was still a more industrial chemicals farm, and we're currently transitioning it to become a regenerative and organic farm, which is a work in progress. But when I grew up on the farm, Sarah, I was about 5 years old, probably less even, but it was my earliest memory. I was so fascinated about how plants grow. So around the time I was 6 years old, I told my parents I want to start my own garden. So I had a school teacher who was teaching us how to make cuttings, how to seed, how to do all of that stuff. And I did that. And from learning it from my teacher, I said, okay, I'm going to do it at home. I started out, it was a complete disaster because I had no clue. I was growing more weeds than anything else, even though at first I was growing radishes, which is the easiest crop to grow. It gives you, if you want to start vegetable growing, start with radishes. Within 4 to 6 weeks, you have something to harvest and to eat. So when I was 6 years old, I was so proud of growing my first radishes. But then I was completely failing. I had no clue why. So I went on into my life. I actually also had a chicken egg business in our farm. I had 20 chicken. I was collecting my eggs every day. I was selling them to friends and connections of my parents. That was a lot of fun. And then by the time I got 18, I said I want to study something tangible and something that I can be outdoors. So I studied garden and landscape design. I then went on to do a master's in landscape architecture in Germany, in Munich, which was designed for big scale projects. And then I did what was kind of expected of me, to get a 9-to-5 job, right? It's that's the thing. You study and then you get a 9-to-5. And I was doing that for 2.5 years. And Sarah, I became so depressed from being in that 9-to-5 because it wasn't for me to be in this rigid system. I'm very grateful that I did it because I learned a whole lot about how to do proper planning in big scale projects, because the Germans are they're some of the best engineers in the world. So I was working in that environment. But then I quit my job and I hit the road. I said, I'm going to travel the world and find the most amazing eco projects in the world. So I went to eco resorts. I worked on farms. I went to Southeast Asia, to South America. I'd been to a bunch of places, to South Africa. And I learned so much from this experience. And then actually I went to the Amazon rainforest, and because I wanted to see what is the deepest real pristine nature. And it was so impressive that I was like, wow, this is so amazing. We have to preserve this, or we have to make sure that we make sure that our environment can sustain this beautiful piece on our planet. And then, Sarah, I got really sick. I got a disease that's called dengue from actually going to the Amazon rainforest. And I had lost all my money then. I was dumped by my girlfriend. I had to move in back with my parents. So everything went south in a short time. But in retrospect, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I was kind of like rock bottom. And I said, like, okay, why am I here on this planet? What am I doing here? And from that, I was like, okay, I'm actually here to make sure that we can protect this beautiful, pristine nature. And how can we do that? Well, I know garden design and landscape. If I get people to do it in a regenerative, organic way, then we're actually going to make the world a better place, and we're going to help people in their direct environment. Because I'll tell you, Sarah, in the gardening industry, there's so much chemicals as well that are being used. Like in some cases, if you have a lawn that's maintained by a normal conventional landscaping company, you actually don't want to be rolling in that grass, because it's full of chemicals and it's poisoning your family. So from that mission, I started my company, which is called Palonia Landscape Architects, and it soon went off, and now we have clients in 4 continents even, because I love traveling, and I also wrote a book which is called 12 Universal Laws of Nature, how to get the most potential out of your land, which won awards. I was featured in a documentary called The Cure, an inside job, which is all about holistic health. And like there's all kinds of practitioners in the movie, which are chiropractors, natural healers, which is all amazing. And I'm kind of the odd fish in the pond, kind of like the black sheep there, because I'm talking about farming and growing food and growing your own garden, because that has a massive impact on your health, and it will definitely have an impact, I believe. And I'd love to hear your perspective on that, on autism as well. So that's what I've been doing today. And now I live I was grown up in Belgium, but I moved to the Azores because something drew me to come here. And it's been a great choice, because now this beautiful island there's something happening with farmers, that a lot of farmers, it's actually a global trend. A lot of farmers are getting into retirement age, and their children don't necessarily want to continue the farming business, because they've seen how much their parents have suffered and how hard it is. Which is a whole other story. We could talk about why it's become so difficult, which is the pharmaceuticals and chemical companies that made it really hard for farmers. But anyways, those farms are up for sale now, and farmers don't necessarily want to sell it to anyone. So I'm connecting investors that want to do impactful investing, so they can buy those farmlands, and then I'm also continuing to transform it into a regenerative farm that produces healthy food that people can come, because there's quite a lot of tourism here, so people can experience the Azorean the Azorean tradition. So yeah, I'm just in the middle of the Atlantic in a small island group, doing what I can.
I love it. And how lucky am I that I now have 2 friends in Azores, okay? Like,
oh wow.
I'm definitely splitting my vacation into, no, just joking. Yeah,
Please.
how exciting.
Come, we'd love to host you here and show you the island. It's magical.
My friend Mishka Seibert, if you don't already know her, maybe I need to connect you to. She's incredible too, and doing incredible things. So that place must bring magic to those who live there, because she's also just like a whirlwinding, like fascinating individual. Well,
Nice.
that's so I think that you really have something to, so much value in what you're doing, because when we really go back to it, the land is where everything began. That's where all of creation began, was from the earth. And I think that we've gotten so far away, and now we're really in this era where we're kind of looking back at maybe where we've missed, and the missing links, or the roads that have crossed one another and paths that we've taken incorrectly, like all of the chemicals and but I guess that's just kind of part of the evolution of our world and our life and humans. But I think that it's fascinating, and I love that you kind of had the experience to have the contrast. I don't love that you got sick and that's horrible, but to have contrast and be able to see what is happening, especially on a global scale, is so big. And there's so many that will be listening and seeing this that don't have that opportunity, that don't have that experience, and how much that actually grows your mind and your thoughts and your ideas and your passion, probably for community more than anything else. I think that going back to kind of basics is really where we need to start with our parenting kind of as well. It's like I was just talking to my husband about this the other day, and kind of we have teenagers, and we were talking about the idea that parents have to be in control of their teenage person all the time, and how absurd that is, and how when they were pioneers or whatever, they were just like traveling, like they weren't concerned. The adults were doing what they needed to do. The children were like kind of following, and it was this do it in your own time, kind of in your own way experience that we've really gotten away from all of the control and expectations that we have of today. And I think that goes from business all the way down into our homes, right? And that it's this like mentality of control, and it's dangerous, and I don't think it really brings like fruitful, experiences or opportunities to people. What do you think, and how can farming and agriculture really start changing and sustainable, like you said, like to explain to us a little bit about like what that means for someone that might not understand that, and how that can start changing our society?
That's a great question. So if we just go a little bit back in history, not even that long ago, and it's one of your presidents who said it, I think, that farming is the backbone of society. So the way we treat our farmers is the way our society is going. So we could start like blaming people and doing all that stuff, but that's not very valuable, even though it's important to know the history of farming. So what happened is that during the First and Second World War, there was a lot of chemical warfare. So they started to use chemicals especially in the First World War, a little less in the second because there was regulations, believe it or not. But then the world, still a lot of the bombs were made with nitrogen, and like nitrogen is very explosive. So then the World War ended, and so all these military companies and built bombs and all the chemicals were like, shit, we have all this stuff, we can't sell it anymore because there's no more war. So let's and then they started experimenting with throwing it on the field and looking at how plants react to it. And interestingly enough, they found out that throwing it on plants, it actually increased the yields and it increased the productivity of farming. And that's what happened in the 50s, which they called the Green Revolution. It's an excelling speed at which the productivity of farming increased drastically. In fact, that revolution, we could even say, pretty much eradicated world hunger. Now, you can still argue today there is still some world hunger. It has to do with climate change, which is another thing we have to, which is the biggest challenge of our modern time, I think.
Yeah.
But back then, it eradicated world hunger in a pretty much. And at the same time, what they didn't know, I believe, is that it has a devastating effect on the soil. So as we're adding all these chemicals, we're actually exploiting the soil. We're making it, we're destructing it. And if you look at our planet, the biggest land use on our planet is agriculture. So then the way we did industrial farming on a mega scale across the globe has been destroying our soils. And when soils are destroyed, it's very hard to produce healthy food. So now and they say like you can only do 50 harvests in a industrial way. So we're getting in that tipping point where farmland is no longer as productive, or we have to keep adding more chemicals and more fertilizer every year. So it's becoming more expensive for farmers to reach the same amount of yields, which at the same time, food prices are not going up as much as the costs are extending. So this is like a system which is completely unsustainable. It's like it's a dead end. So now, luckily, there's good news. There's something which is called regenerative farming, which is based more on natural systems because, and I talk about that in my book, 12 Universal Laws of Nature, is that our planet works in a certain way. It has been working in a certain way for millions and millions of years. Now we can try and fight against that, which was the industrial farming, is like exploiting from nature and pretty much destroying the soil. Or we could actually try and work with nature and still get what we need. So when we focus more on natural systems such as photosynthesis, like this is how plants grow, and we find ways to add nutrients to the soil in a natural way, for example, through composting or other systems, then we can actually produce abundance of food, which is also good for our environment. Because when you do regenerative farming, as a little side effect, I always say, like, people are focusing on it now, but it's kind of a side effect, is that it's storing huge amounts of carbon dioxide that is in our atmosphere. Whereas the industrial way of tilling and chemicals and all that stuff, it's adding more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. So it's speeding up climate change, the way we are farming. Whereas if we do the regenerative way, it's something called carbon farming. We're actually putting a lot of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So you could say like the agricultural complex, the whole system of our food, it is the biggest impactor of climate change. But at the same time, that's where the solutions lay. Like if we have the ability to transform half of the farms and make them regenerative, within 7 years, we could be in pre-industrial revolution levels of carbon dioxide, which means we can reverse climate change in 7 years. And there's very few people talk about that, because the biggest paradigm is like we have to reduce emissions, we have to stop all this stuff, but nobody's focusing on like we can actually reverse it, so we can also keep our the comfortable lives that we have. We don't necessarily have to change them. We can actually produce abundance of healthy food when we do it regeneratively. So that's in a nutshell why agriculture is probably the most important thing of our modern times as well.
And I think that's so fascinating. And just being a beginning gardener myself, like I can literally feel the difference from one side of my yard to the next, where the concrete has taken over and cannot be cooled, and it just heats up and reflects and heats up some more. And then I go onto the other side of my yard where it's all grass and plants and trees, and it's cool and the ground is cool and it can cool itself down. And have we been thinking about this, anyone? Like there's obvious effects right in front of us that are being just kind of not looked at all. Isn't that interesting? So
interesting.
yeah, you really can. You can just like, there's a huge difference in the way that the ground can cool itself, or because I'm in a hot desert. And so I need to try to stay cool as much as possible.
Yes.
But I think that the importance of looking at this is something that we're really lucky to be in this era and generation of having wonderful experts like you who are seeing more than just the small details, but the big picture. And that's something that we really appreciate, especially here on my show, is being able to see larger than the ideas that people might have in front of them. Because we are, not only enjoying the earth every day for ourselves, but those of us who have children or bringing families into it, we want the earth to be around for them, and we want to be able to be kind of at being able to be sustainable in our agriculture. I think that is so smart. And obviously, like you had mentioned earlier, the effects that these foods have on our bodies is just undeniable. The processed foods, the chemicals, we're seeing generations of what those effects can be. And how nice will it be if more of us can get onto the idea that the growing our own foods and creating this self-sustainable ecosystem for our families is such an important and an idea that we all should be looking into, if anything.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think it's becoming a necessity in the world because a lot of the foods in many countries, including the US, it's not made for consumption. Like it's packed with chemicals. I think I saw an article that in the US the European Union is banning around 2,000 chemicals that are not banned in the US for farm production and food processing. So if you're buying stuff, even organic, because even organic is not as good as it sounds, like still it's your best bet. But it's just packed with chemicals. And then I'm curious to know from your perspective as well, and how much you think that it affects autism. Do you think there's a correlation between the chemicals and autism, or is that a misconception?
Oh, I think that's a wonderful question. There's an article that's I'm going to answer it kind of two-sided there, because an article just recently came out that was stating that they had taken the DNA from a Neanderthal and they were seeing autistic aspects in that there were in the like hunter-gatherer type of I guess actions that they would display. Which makes me feel really good, because in my early days of researching and doing, I was a medical paralegal before I became an autism mom. And so, excuse me, when I was doing my research, I had just a really good idea of what I was looking at and how to go through the information and sort it. And what I found in all of my reading in the whole was an understanding of evolution more than anything else. An understanding that throughout all of this time, these types of brains have been uncovering and unfolding and revealing themselves, if you will, throughout time. And so I think it's fascinating. However, I do full-heartedly believe in the idea that there are chemicals out there that can cause symptomatic effects that resemble autistic characteristics, if you will, for maybe non-speaking or stimming or physical effects. And I only say that due to the fact that my whole family is autistic. I'm late diagnosed. My son was diagnosed at 18 months, 18 months, and he was very severe. And at the time, he was non-speaking. He would spin circles. He would hum and flap his arms. And all the same, he was reading. I had found this reading program I was working with him with, and he was showing me that he could read. And so I could see this this difficult kind of where he as a human, had all of this knowledge and information and he was getting all of this, but the output that's where he struggled. He struggled with all of this output of the information or the energy or what he was dealing with. In my research, somebody had sent to me an article or a website about gluten and casein. And I thought, okay, that's interesting, but I didn't want to just be like fad diet, throw my kid into something I didn't understand. And so I fully researched what is gluten, what is casein. They are both proteins. Protein, I believe that protein inflammation is kind of the underlying, like that's the underlier, is that what I'll call it? And I think that protein malfunction hasn't been researched enough. Like they're not, maybe they can start looking at that and how that function, because when I removed the casein, which was the first protein that I removed from his body, and because when I was learning about what the casein could affect, I was learning it could cause inflammation in the neuropaths. It could cause inflammation connecting the synapses to maybe block my child's ability to speak. And this, of course, is so individual. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm just a mom who, an autistic, very smart mom who is on a mission to do whatever I could, right? And we took the casein out.
Love it.
Now, he had been reading and writing for nearly 3 years, and he was only 5 years old. But as soon as the casein was removed, within the first week, and I went back and I checked these things, I recorded everything. He spoke 50 words within the first week of removing casein from his system. Of course, we never went back, and he has semi-verbal abilities. He doesn't have wonderful reciprocative conversation skills. That's something we'll be working on, but his ability to verbalize is there. And now that was something that was a gift that, every mother wants to hear their child speak. And it was incredible.
I also have another friend who's brought up her autistic son, and they're doing amazing things. I even think that autism is a super gift because you can see things that other people can't see.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful movie. I don't know if you've watched it. I can highly recommend it. It's called Temple Grandin. Have you heard of that one?
Oh, I've had Temple on the show. She's great.
You're kidding me. Wow.
No,
That's
yes,
amazing.
absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
She's a superhero for regenerative farming.
Yes.
And what she does for cow and animal welfare is amazing.
Absolutely. I hadn't thought of that. That would be a connection for you, but 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
No, I really love what, she's.
I'd love to get her on my show, actually.
I'll send her a recommendation. But yeah, I think that it's beautiful. And what she was able to do was really start to show the world that a different type of brain wasn't a disease or a problem or a behavioral inconsistency. It was a pattern of thinking and of learning that hadn't been looked at before and hadn't been given enough attention to. And now we can be so grateful that we can have those, tools to use. And one quote we like to say is, a little bit of knowledge turns fear into understanding. And that's a lot what she did, was turn that fear into understanding with just by acknowledging and giving those that community, her community, the knowledge of what she was going through. So I couldn't agree more. And then I'll finish with this gluten story and then we're back to you. But the when we took the gluten, we waited 8 weeks before we took gluten out of DJ's diet as well as the casein. And what I saw then, and in my research, I'll back up and say that I found that the gluten could cause obviously a lot of digestive problems, in where I kind of viewed as, maybe this is why my child is spitting so much. Maybe he's trying to organize or some sort of, regulate his body in some way that is not happening, that his, body isn't doing for him. And when we took out the gluten, right away, most of the stimming stopped. The humming, the flapping, the spitting, all of those behaviors and physical manifestations of whatever he was going through with that inflammation had stopped. And it's really hard because not everyone, it's not going to work for everyone, because everyone is built with a different biological and chemical makeup, and they react to things differently. This was just our experience. And
I love it, because I do believe the major factor is food in your story here.
Yeah.
And the way food is produced. And if you want, I can tell you about why there's gluten in our food. Do you know
Please.
why? So the food production system after World War II moved away from quality and local systems to a global market of producing food on a mega scale. And then the only thing that mattered more than quality was quantity. So you're trading grains on a like, it's like a stock market. And so the only goal that or the shift was from quality grains to as much kilogram per hectare. And that what they found out is that they started to select breeds of grains that they are just heavier in weight. And the single biggest determination of how you can increase the weight of a grain is when the gluten content is way higher. So gluten weighs way more than, or it makes the grains heavier. And when your grain is heavier, you'll get more tons per hectare or per acre, and that's how you make the most amount of money as a farmer. You can't blame the farmers, because that's how the system started to work. So all of the breads of grains that were made for bread and even for animal fodder is directed to weighing heavy and not on nutritional value. So that's a huge mistake. And now I'm strongly believing that shift will move away again, because if we can focus on quality more than quantity, because you can eat 5 loaves of bread that have high amounts of gluten, but they don't have any minerals or things that are actually good for you. Whereas if you go to Italy or France, they have amazing old grains and they make amazing pasta and bread, and there's still gluten in it. It's just not in such a high level. So people are super healthy there, and they're skinny. Even in Italy, there's very few people that are overweight. So that's also another misconception in food, is that carbs are bad for you.
Yeah.
That's getting debunked. It's not the carbs, it's the type of carbs. When it's full of gluten, then of course carbs are bad for you. But if it's an older breed of grains and you make sourdough bread and it's super tasty and healthy for you, then it's perfect. So that's kind of the backstory of why the food that your child was eating was just not good for him. And it's for everyone.
Yeah.
It's not just for people with autism. You'll have a bunch of
100%.
diseases from eating high gluten products.
Oh, isn't that the truth? And we're at a really, really tipping point, I think, like you said, where we are. Just today, I'm going to go down to my local farmers co-op, and I'm going to pick up a big box of fruits and vegetables that came off of a farm here locally in Salt Lake City. Thank goodness, right, that I have that kind of thing available to me.
That puts a big smile on my face.
I love it. I can't wait. I'm really, really excited. So yeah, today's pickup day. So we'll have our fridge and counter stocked with all the good stuff for the week.
And that actually makes the biggest transition and difference for farmers. It's not so much how you vote. You can be, I don't think we need to get political, but voting is only every 4 years. And it is important, but the way you buy your products is what really changes the world, because you're buying it from a local organic regenerative farmer. He's going to be able to grow his business, feed his own family, and that's what really changes the world. So congrats on doing that, not only for your family and your personal health, but for the farmers as well.
I mean, what a perfect day for this episode to be on, right? I just love it. Serendipitous. This is perfect. It's so great. I'd love to invite you back on, because there's so many more conversations we could have and get into depth about some more things. Tell me the name of the book again, because I was putting the banner up and then I just stopped so I could listen and stop typing.
12 Universal Laws of Nature.
Of Nature. Perfect.
Yes. It's out
And
on Amazon.
where can everybody find? Oh, on Amazon.
That's
Perfect.
Amazon.
Please go and find 12 Universal Laws of Nature. I myself can't wait to look into it and find out more. Is it on Audible by any chance?
Oh, that's a really good question. I have to sit together with my podcaster who wanted me to record it so that we can put it on Audible. There's so much other priorities for the moment.
Oh,
but it's definitely going to happen this year.
Good. Oh, I'd love to hear that, because that's my favorite way of absorbing information. So that's wonderful. This has been such a great conversation, and you have so much to share. Like I said, I'd love to have you back on to go over some more things and talk about kind of, just health and nature and how that we can really just become better for our environment. And, typical neurotypical human is what we all are, and we all should be concerned with our human bodies and the way that we're living in the world today. So I hope that you receive some wonderful information from this episode today, and please go and check out the 12 Universal Laws of Nature, and also follow Matthew on any social medias. Is there any things you'd like to share, your socials and things?
Oh, just quickly, I'm active on a few platforms. Like on LinkedIn, it's more business minded and for investors and people that want to invest in regenerative farmland or real estate. Then on Instagram, it's more gardening tips and tricks and hacks and how you can become a regenerative gardener. That's a lot of fun. Also, some of that on TikTok. And Facebook is also where you can find a lot of my information, both personal and about gardening and farming.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for joining us. What time is it there for you?
Good question. It's now 7:45 p.m.
Okay. It's 1:45 here. So that's not too bad of a difference, 6-hour difference there. So wonderful.
I'm in the middle between the US and Europe.
And it is so beautiful. Like I said, I'm so lucky to have two friends now in Azores. So I think it's calling to me. I think that's the universe giving me a special message, isn't it?
Come over.
Oh, thank you so much for being here today. Please, listeners, go and check out the 12 laws of nature, 12 universal laws of nature, and also think about how you are using your gardening. What are you feeding your family? And of course, if you have any autism questions or needs, reach out to me at any time you need to. And it was so nice to have you here today. And I really look forward to staying in touch.
Me too, Sarah. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Shining bright, oh yeah, stories of love and courage all throughout the night. Her voice resonating, an anthem for all through the trials and the trials. She answers the call, a mother and a fighter, breaking barriers in stride. With love as her guide, she'll never hide. She's changing the world for you, with a heart that's fierce and strong, and put these melodies. Journey we all belong. Followers gather like stars in the night. So bright, 44,000 voices shared in the light. She stands for family, advocates for more. A movement of compassion, ways will soar. Podcast together, a symphony of support. Creating life, changing rapport. She's changing the world. A heart that's fierce and strong. but